Okay, so we missed those other 3 slides, but we're back on track. So collaboration actually comes from 2 words. I think it's Latin. And the first one is co, which means together. And the second one is labor, which means work, which is kind of what it is, right? Collaboration, working together. And one of the definitions Claire Forrest uses is that partners will agree on a common goal. And that goal is beyond what they could do by themselves. And it actually changes the way they interact. It's a significant change when you're collaborating. It's not just cooperating, although cooperation is part of it. And it's not just coordinating, but that's part of it. It's a bigger commitment. It involves really having to trust the other partners in the collaboration. And in the book, Claire talks about how it can be a family worker collaborating with a family and working on helping them meet a goal, but it can also be agencies coming together and collaborating on a project or something important for the community. And it's a process that can go really wrong or can be very successful, but it actually requires commitment and trust and being careful to work together in resourceful ways. So one of the things it involves is coming together to plan. If somebody takes over the planning and is real bossy, then other people involved may not invest as much. They're going to be uncomfortable with that process. And it involves sharing resources. So sometimes an agency that has funding but doesn't have other kinds of resources, like maybe they don't have staff that could meet the needs of the project, or maybe they need to hold it in a different area of the community. So another agency might come in with staff that can do something, or a wonderful building that they could hold an event in. And then that last part is like, as you're doing all this planning, you're also building trust. So community agencies will often collaborate with government agencies and county programs to better serve families, including applying for grants and solving problems that impact the community. So there's a group of nonprofit programs in Santa Cruz County that have been collaborating since probably the 80s, long time. And the programs may change, the agencies may change, and the staff may change because people move on, or they retire, or new people come in, but they still get together. They're called the Human Care Alliance. And they originally started because they realized that there were some government grants that were available, but they noticed that instead of finding a way to apply for the grants, people were competing. So agencies would each fill out their own application. And in the end, maybe nobody got it. So they started saying, wait a minute, why don't we think about this a little bit smarter? And so they would plan and work on these grants and get funding, and then work together as a collaborative in terms of how are we going to distribute services, which agency is best equipped to do this particular thing. And they've gotten really good at that process. So any questions or comments about that? Okay. Oh, sounds like someone's coming on. No? Okay. So we're going to talk a little bit, we're switching gears. We're going to talk a little bit about support groups. And I don't know if you had a chance to look at the assignment for this particular chapter. Instead of doing your regular written assignment for chapter 10 in Claire Forrest, I had you look at a handout about support groups and then reflect a little bit on support groups, because this is a really valuable part of being a family development worker. The ability to facilitate groups and to support families and different groups in this way is a very skillful, requires a lot of skill, but also you get a lot of value by doing work in this way. What happens when, and we were kind of talking about this in the beginning when we were talking about community, what happens when a group of people who share a situation come together and listen to each other and experience being together with a like-minded group is very healing and very powerful. So we know that groups are sometimes facilitated by peers. Sometimes they are facilitated by professionals, might be a counselor or somebody that's been trained in a particular process of facilitating or is knowledgeable about a particular issue. But there's something so important about sharing our experiences when you realize that other people who are sitting in the same circle have had a similar experience and feel similarly, and maybe have solved an issue for themselves that you haven't gotten to yet, or maybe are just beginning and you can reach out a helping hand to them. There's something about that process that's transformative. So how many, or not necessarily how many people, but share with me, if you will, experiences where you've been either a participant in a support group and what that's been like, or you've been able to facilitate a support group and what's that like?
Gail?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Well, I've facilitated 12-step groups. I'm doing some work here at the TAE program. Like next week, I'm going to be facilitating a broken tile mosaic workshop,
Ooh,
and a couple different things I've done. I enjoyed.
that sounds very cool. Okay, how about somebody else? Participant or facilitator or both? Somebody was saying Gail and then,
Oh, it was me, Martha.
okay, go for it.
The agency where I'm working right now, the coordinator, she started to do a group of like a kind of like a focus group, but it turned into a support group.
Oh,
So
that's
it was
exciting.
like, but we've been doing it by Zoom,
Uh-huh.
but it's been working out. I mean, it was only like for 6 weeks. So
Mhm.
once a week, we'll get together. I was being like helping her, but at the same time, I was a participant
Uh-huh.
too.
Uh-huh.
So it was for mental health.
Uh-huh.
So they were talking about stress and anxiety.
Yeah.
So it was like, it was really, really good. It was for 2 hours in the evenings, 2 hours once a week.
Mhm.
But they really like it. And a lot of people were like, they were having some issues, sometimes they don't have good internet, or they were like getting, it was just a lot of different situations, but most of the people that it was about 10 people that we got together every week, and it started like about 15 people, but some of them, they were like having trouble, and they were not able to connect to the Zoom call, but it was really good. I think even though it wasn't in person group, but I thought it was, and they really like it, and they say, yeah, we have to do it again, or find other topics to
Mhm.
talk about. And we had the facilitator was she works for mental no for what is it for the Department of Health.
Mental health.
Yeah.
Great. Great.
So
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
was really good. It was a lot of good information, and yeah, it was really good.
Thank you. That sounds wonderful. And I think we do, even though they are right now on Zoom,
Mm-hmm.
um, I think that we'll take what we get, right? If we're getting
Yeah.
to get it one way or another. Anybody else, facilitator or participant in a group? That includes
Yeah.
like 12-step groups, right? Yeah.
Yeah, besides, I mean, I'm involved in 12-step groups, but there's this format that I found very interesting for creating support groups called the Circle Way.
Hmm.
I know you might be familiar with it.
Tell us.
Well,
Sure.
it's just a format that you can use for any sort of support group, but it is constructed in a way that there are no leaders. So, you know, you're in a circle and the roles move clockwise.
Mhm.
And it starts by setting intention. My friends and I have used it or continue to use it with book reading groups and looking at different privileges, right? So we used it to look at male privilege and toxic masculinity, and then we used it to look at internalized racism and do anti-racism work in that circle. And it's very, very helpful. You can look at thecircleway.org, and they have free PDFs for people.
Okay, and I'll put that on circleway.org. I'll put that on our Canvas this week. I also have really enjoyed working and doing circle work, and remember doing back in the day when we saw each other, really powerful work with a Head Start program in Auburn, California. And we had the staff who were family workers, they were family development workers, and then there were also teachers in the Head Start programs. And we would bring up topics, but mostly it was people could respond from a felt place, like where they were with whatever it was. And we had a talking stick. And again, as Joel's saying, it was very prescribed. Even though we were facilitating, we were very much part of the group. So thank you for bringing that up, John. Let's do one more. Who has one more kind of support group
I
experience?
have a comment.
Okay, yeah.
I was involved in a parent workshop for my son. It was with other parents who were just facing challenges. And it was really interesting because we're mentioning the word circle, and we all sat in a circle facing each other, and it just made us feel like we were connected. And we started to share our feelings, you know, our difficult experiences and whatnot, and people started crying, but it was that feeling of connection.
Yeah.
You know, and it was pretty powerful.
Yeah, there's something sacred about sitting in circle with people. And that idea of there's no leader because we're all in the chair. I think there's a book called There's a Leader in Every Chair or something. And that experience of sitting together and coming together in that way is so healing. Thank you. Yeah. Other comments?
I was wanting to share something real quickly.
Yeah.
For years, I volunteered to do a play group at a community nonprofit for babies, older babies, and toddlers. And 100% of the time, what would happen is we would sit in a circle, and I would be teaching and modeling different songs and activities they can do with their babies. And then, you know, that would 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And then babies crawl away or whatever. It always turned into a support group with big, heavy topics would come up.
Yeah.
And it became a lifeline for, you know, first-time moms or moms with a lot of young children at home. It was just it was so I started when I was a new mom. I didn't know what I was getting into. But like you say, you sit in a circle and you just have one topic come up, and it just would blossom into this really powerful support group.
Yeah, yeah. The magic of that, magic of the circle, you know, and I think we're becoming so zoomed out that I'm looking forward to a time when we can actually be in person live and sit in circles. And we can try and recreate that in our Zooms. It's, you know, that's okay. We'll take that for now, but to just remember the power of actually being in the same place with somebody and being able to really see into their eyes and their soul, and feel the energy in the room. There's something even about being in a room together with people when you're feeling some feelings, that you can begin to feel settled down if the energy in the room changes. And sort of we can do that, I guess, on Zoom, but I think we're missing a piece of it. So we'll get there again. I know we will. Hearing encouraging words about vaccines this week. So since we're talking about support groups, I have this activity that I'm excited for you to share. And it's going to be a breakout room activity. And to get ready for it, let's make sure that you take a screenshot of the next 3 slides. So take this one, and then I'll show you the other ones too. And I'll try to explain it as we're taking our screenshots. It has to do with support groups. Okay. So we're going to have, I think, 4 different breakout rooms. So probably be, if we have, looks like we have 26, 25 people. So maybe 8, maybe a large breakout room, but that's okay. We have 3 different situations that I'm going to show you in a minute, and they have to do with group members of support groups. So this first slide just says to take the pictures, and then each breakout room will have a different group member that they have to handle. So this group member may be challenging. And when you get into your group, you're going to talk about the challenges and then answer the questions that come up in the slides. So part of what you'll have to do is notice what group, what breakout room you're being asked to join. So when we start to put people in breakout rooms, it'll say, you know, you're invited to join breakout room 1 or 2 or 3 or 4. So make sure that you notice which one you're going into, because then you'll look at your screenshot to see which your assignment is. Does that make sense? Hopefully it will as we go through. So this one is breakout room number 1. So the people that are in breakout room number 1, you're going to have a person with distracting personal needs. And you probably, you know, it doesn't always have to be, it can even be like, what's that like at a family gathering, or what's that like with a group of friends? You can think about this. You may know this person in your life from other situations, but in your group, say that you're group facilitators, this particular group member never stays on the, oops, that's a typo. That's supposed to say on the subject. Okay, so never stays on the subject, personalizes the conversation. For example, if the group was talking about nutrition, they would start talking about their health issues, and they would pretty much monopolize the conversation. It would be hard for people to get much of a word in. Okay, so that's the breakout room number 1 person. And then the questions that you'll have is, why do you think this person's behaving this way? And then what could a group facilitator do or say to encourage this person to concentrate on the topic and not distract the group? Okay, so that's your first task. And then if you're going to end up in break room number 2, you're going to be dealing with an under talker. Okay, and this group member rarely speaks. And when someone speaks to them directly, their response is usually, I don't know, or I have no opinion. Okay. So your job is, again, to answer the question, why might a person behave in this way? And then how would you, as the group facilitator, encourage the person to participate more in the group discussion? Okay, so that we've got those first two breakout rooms. The next slide is going to be for breakout room number 3. We have an over talker, and this group member speaks often loudly, and they frequently interrupt others. They don't always listen, and sometimes they make comments that probably aren't that appropriate about other people, suggestions. Okay, and again, your questions are, why might a person behave that way? And how might a group facilitator encourage this person to be a more supportive member of the group? Okay. So if you end up in break room number 4, you're going to get an angry group member. Okay. They're angry and they make aggressive remarks to the group facilitator and to other group members. And so your questions for this is, why might a person behave this way? And what could a group facilitator do to deal with this person? How could you restore a sense of safety and well-being to the group? Okay, so you'll have fun with those in just a minute. And you know, when they say, why might a person behave this way? What we're doing is we're kind of looking for, what's the need behind the behavior? You know, a lot of times when we're working with kids, we think about, oh, they're acting out, or they're doing this or that. And adults too, we all do it. What is going on with this person? What's underneath this behavior? What is it that they need? And how can I help in a way? So you'll take your ideas into your break rooms. And because we're going to mix everybody up in the break rooms and we never know who's going where, if you have hopefully have all those slides, you'll be able to identify which is your assignment. And also, if you notice when you get the invite to go to the break room, which one you're being asked to join. Those are the 2 keys to making this work for us. Okay. So people ready? Any questions? Okay. So we said we have 4. So we're going to create 4. If at all possible, when you're in your breakout room, have your camera on so people can see you. Okay, here we go. Ready, set, go. Hi, Jessica. Are you in the main room? Hi, Anna. Alexis, are you in the main room? Sorry.
And not distract the group. We said that, create a talking object or a talking stick so that, the facilitator can say, well, whenever, this person has, the pen, they're the ones who talk. We could reassure them, letting them, your needs are important and everything that you have is important, but what we're discussing is this right now. So we need to focus on this. And then maybe towards the end, we have time to discuss your specific need. Talking to them after in private, maybe having just like letting them go and then having that conversation one-on-one privately. And then somebody had mentioned that it can encourage other people to share things that they're dealing with, which can be good, but it can also take things like really way off topic.
Yeah. Those are great ideas.
I think I got everything.
Thank you. Anybody want to add anything from the group or from the class? Those are great. These are all challenging. This is very challenging because sometimes you don't want to like discourage somebody, especially if they're brand new, from coming back. But at the same time, you have to protect the rest of the group members too. So good job. Thank you. Thank you very much. So let's do breakout room number 2. And let's see, let's remember who you had. Yeah.
Breakout number 2 was me. I'm Sean. And it was Amanda, Arlene, Martha, and Roberta.
Okay.
So our situation was a person who rarely speaks, and usually his answer is no comment or I don't know. And we kind of thought sometimes it's okay, especially if it's your first meeting, to say just listen, and get comfortable with the group. So for why, we thought maybe nervous, or the person felt out of place, or a stranger because he didn't know the people, or maybe the subject matter wasn't something that interested them, and then how to make them feel more comfortable, or how to get them to talk would be to try to validate or try to make them feel comfortable by maybe having some group structure, like the talk circle or a talking stick or whatever. And if it came to him and he says, I don't know, or I have no comment, then you could tell him or her that, well, we can pass you now and we'll come back to you after the circle goes all the way around, so we give you a chance to think about it a little bit more. Maybe make the first couple questions or icebreaker, or make the questions a general question like, what's your favorite color, or something real simple to start out with, just to kind of break the ice and to make things go more smoothly.
Those are wonderful. Thank you. Anybody in that group want to add anything, or anybody else in the class want to add? Okay, so our breakout room number 3.
I'll share a little bit.
Thanks,
For
Lori.
group number 3. One thing that I had shared with the group was that talking loud, talking often, interrupting, interjecting inappropriate comments.
I'm going to interrupt you for a second. It seems like, I don't think it's Lori's audio, but I think somebody has their audio on, somebody else, or what I might do is I'm going to go ahead and try and mute everybody, and then Lori, please unmute yourself. Okay, so let's try this.
Okay.
Yeah.
Does that work? Okay, I'll just try to go quickly because everyone had some really interesting thing to say. It turned out that the person that I knew personally who did this a lot and still does has really suffered from ADD his entire life. And when he described his childhood to me, it was like, oh my gosh, you were really out of control in the classroom, your entire school experience. And even though his lifestyle was, couldn't, got bored easily, had to switch, super bright, but it had to go from one thing to the next. And actually interrupting and being inappropriate was sort of part of that. So anyway, just having that kind of compassion that there could be something underlying that is a behavior they're sort of not in control of, and that they could. And then what Joel was mentioning or agreeing is that setting agreements ahead of time about interrupting and inappropriate comments. And Miguel mentioned that sometimes behavior that way is a sense of needing to establish power in a group, dominance. And I shared that as a woman. I experienced that a lot in my lifetime, especially if I have to rely on a male. It's right away dominating kind of with interrupting and that kind of behavior. And then anyone else from the group want to share? So what Joel really was talking about, how in 12-step programs, they have all those agreements beforehand that keep everybody safe, and no crosstalk, no interruptions, and makes it very safe for everybody, so everyone can feel safe to share, and that is a great antidote to that.
That was great. Thank you. The other thing is that came up twice, and I think it bears repeating. The idea of having ground rules and a group agreements that you talk about at the beginning. And then I know in 12-step groups, you bring those up every time, which I think is actually a nice ritual, is that we always go back to this is what this is about. So it keeps it intentional that, yes, this is going to be a group where we respect other people and we don't cross-talk and we don't interrupt and we just share from our own experience. So I think that's, if when we set that up ahead of time, it makes it easier also to tell people, according to our agreements, or remember, to sort of, you have a cue then also to help people remember, oh yeah, this is the way that this group works. Thank you. That was wonderful.
And I forgot something I really wanted to share. I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, go for it.
As a preschool teacher for 30 years, I had to do circle time. And all of this behavior is from day one. And they probably will still be that way. All you can do is, like you say, give them tools. But a magical antidote to it was to break into smaller groups. Yeah. Two or three children per adult, and that kind of behavior would kind of vanish and became much calmer and cooperative. In smaller groups. I just had to throw that in. Sorry.
Yeah, thank you. And I think that works well with adults too. I'm pretty sure. That's wonderful. It reminds me of, remember that book, Everything We Ever Learned, we learned in kindergarten or something. So yeah, we're still working on those things. Thank you very much. So we have, I think, one more group with an angry person.
Yeah, group number 4, we have the angry person. And this group member is angry and makes aggressive remarks to the group facilitator and other group members. And we all agreed that this person is obviously angry, and that maybe he has other things going on in his life, like problems. And he might have other issues too with anger management. And maybe he needs to talk. And Kitty had she's in our group, she had a lot of insight in the work that she has done and with juveniles. And she would ask the certain person who is being aggressive if they'd like to step outside for a moment. And maybe there's something they need to talk about, but just to take a moment to remove them from the group. I don't know if it might be harder to do that with an adult, maybe not. I don't know, you know. So those were some ideas of what we could do, and setting boundaries in the beginning, group rules, going over those first. That way, at least it might prevent, and it might not, you know, someone from being aggressive or angry. And as far as, let's see, what would the facilitator do to restore a sense of safety and well-being to the group? We all decided asking is, okay, is everybody okay? Does everybody feel safe? And maybe we should all take a 5-minute break just to regroup. So that's what we came up with.
He's a hard one, huh? Yeah, thank you. Anybody
He's
got
very
any
difficult
from the group or from the class, that any other?
I did want to say something, but just a typical male that's angry. When you tell him, "Would you like to step outside?" That sometimes means you want to fight.
Good point. Yeah.
Maybe we'd word it differently, Sean.
Yeah, we'll find a reframe, but thanks. That's a good reminder. You know, I think too. Yeah. Yeah. When I think about this particular person, I think about the kind of support groups where people are mandated to be there. So it might be a DUI program or a parent that has to go to parenting class or anger management, some of those things. And so they come in oftentimes with that angry stance, like a chip on their shoulder. And it's tough. And what that person can do in the group is, if there's other people that are feeling that way as well, boy, they can really create a thing going, right?
Like a gaslight.
Yeah. But it's like trying to figure out ahead of time to take a both power with approach, so that if you are power over, even though that might be your tendency, like, oh, I'm going to hush this guy up, you could create an escalation. But if you can kind of find a way to join with the folks and say, you know, I know some of you are here because you don't really want to be, or you'd rather be doing this, but I understand that you need to be here, and your job is blah, blah, and my job is this. Let's see if we can get to work, and sort of try to partner with them in some way. And sometimes it does involve asking, you know, like Kitty said, let's talk about this, you know, let's talk about this. Let's go out here now. So yeah, interesting, always challenging. Sometimes you're surprised that that person, though, once they've calmed down and maybe been listened to a little bit, ends up being a person who really adds a lot to the group. So can be interesting. So this was really fun. I remember many challenging experiences facilitating groups. And I also remember some really rewarding times once we sort of got people to feel safe. I wanted to just also say a group, just like any kind of relationship, changes over time. So your first meeting, as people begin to get to know you as the facilitator and then each other as group members, changes a lot if you can set safety and help people begin to feel connected. And it doesn't happen right away. At the beginning, though, trust can build, and then people can begin to feel safe enough to start to really work and use the group in really healing and productive ways. So thank you. That was really, it was fun for me to hear all your different responses. Anybody have any comments or questions? Okay, so here we go. Yay, holiday next week. And so whatever you do, whoever you're with, please stay safe. take care of yourself, and have a good time. Okay, now we're going to do attendance. So let's go ahead and if you can turn your camera on, and I'm going to stop sharing, and I'm also going to stop recording. I'm starting to remember